Today's topic, getting banned from r/conservative on Reddit. And I already know I'm gonna get heated about this, so yeah, just strap in. So, how did I get banned? Did I post a disparaging Charlie Kirk meme? Maybe something about Ben Shapiro seeming to like feet? No, I didn't talk about any of those things. As you guys know, on this channel, I talk about social and political issues, and one of my most recent videos was a video essay talking about Turning Point USA, which is Charlie Kirk's organization. If you want to deep dive on that, check out that video. But basically, my basic take was Turning Point seems to care about having rigorous debate. When you actually look into their social media and their event practices, what you find is, in my opinion, a lot of content that is simply about confirming people's biases. Honestly, that's a pretty tepid take. There's a lot worse things that you can say about Turning Point USA, and that's not really something that I'm super interested in. You can find that content on a literal subreddit called Toilet Paper USA, which is dedicated to just trashing on Charlie Kirk and, a lot of conservative pundits. And while that stuff may be funny, it's just not really what I'm interested in doing. This channel is fundamentally about hopefully presenting a good enough argument that anyone can take a look at it. And if you agree, great, maybe you can add more to the conversation in that way. But if you disagree, especially if you disagree, I want to hear from you, because that's how conversations evolve and advance. I took my very lukewarm, tepid take, genuinely just an analysis of Turning Point USA, and I posted it to r/conservative with the following title: Charlie Kirk is dangerous for America. I made a video analyzing Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk and their tactics on social media. I wasn't encouraged by what I found, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. Conservatives of Reddit, what do you think of TPUSA? Let's chat. Immediately, literally within 30 seconds of posting this, I received a notification that I was permanently banned from r/conservative, and they cited rules 5 and 7 of their subreddit. And those rules are: 5, shitposts will be removed at moderator discretion and the user may be banned. A shitpost can be anything from a really badly written article to spam to a comment that is just really dumb. Depending upon what it is, we might ban you for it. And rule number 7, do not violate the mission statement. We have a mission statement and we take it very seriously. This is what guides our subreddit and determines who and what belongs here. And in addition to that, they also linked their post what r/conservative is not. Number 1, we are not a debate forum. We are not here to indulge you in your leftist views that history has proven wrong over and over again. We're not going to waste our time with you arrogantly telling us how wrong you think we are. Number 4, we are not fair and balanced. We don't pretend to be unbiased. We don't pretend to give all commenters equal time. This is by conservatives and for conservatives. We are here to discuss conservative topics from a distinctly conservative point of view. If you don't like that it's not an unbiased forum, go ask why r/politics is a leftist totalitarian state. Leftists and moderates have never been welcomed here. If you wander in here and spout nonsense or insult us, don't be surprised when we ban you almost immediately. So after reading through that, I wasn't surprised, but I definitely do think that there is some amount of interesting irony and hypocrisy. It's not explicitly said in how they're phrasing it here, but it seems like they're upset that they cannot speak freely about their views in an open forum such as r/politics. To then turn around on r/conservatives and say, well, now it's only about conservatism. If you were upset about r/politics being this totalitarian state where other ideas cannot be discussed, why would you then also turn around and create that version of the same thing just for right-wing leaning thoughts? I think this kind of interestingly brings us into a discussion about kind of safe spaces or spaces that are curated for a very particular thing. And keep in mind, conservative rhetoric has been, oh, leftists are so soft, they're so snowflakey for having safe spaces where only certain things can be talked about, right? And yet the entire construction of this subreddit is this is a safe space, but just for conservatives, right? To be upset that leftist folk are so snowflakey in this way, but then also to enact that same kind of thing just with different accoutrements, different bells and whistles, maybe not saying it's a safe space, but hey, it's only for us, right? That's the same shit. Conservative folk had an absolute field day in 2018 when the Senate was talking about college campuses being liberal echo chambers for ideas just to be bounced around and conservative ideas being shut out. And again, that is happening within these forums, right? So it's just like, what do we actually care about? Are we just mad that we don't get to say what we want to say? Or do we actually care about the value and the idea of having a rigorous conversation with someone. It genuinely does not matter to me that my video in particular got deleted from the subreddit. What's troubling about this position is principally two things. One, the idea of free speech, and two, the idea of unity and coming together as a nation, both of which are sticking points for conservative folk. To the free speech aspect, conservatives have been decrying the fact that private institutions like Twitter have too much power, right, in being able to silence someone like Donald Trump, the removal of Parler from the App Store, basically saying, hey, you're censoring our speech that goes against our First Amendment rights. That's messed up, that's un-American. To then turn around and say, this is the only kind of speech that we value in this space, right? We only value conservative speech, is hypocritical. If you are going to decry one institution for doing that, then you also should be decrying yourself for enacting that same kind of policy. Or, perhaps more logically, you should understand the logic because you yourself are employing it in this way, right? You're banning people that aren't agreeing or aren't saying what you want them to say in this way. And I think at this point you have to ask, well, okay, is the conservative position just then reactionary? In the best case scenario, they would want to be George Orwell, right? 1984ing people out the wazoo, banning people left and right. But oh man, the left is doing it, so I guess we have to do that as well. Or is this just very simply a hypocritical stance where it's okay if it happens to other people that you don't agree with, but the minute it happens to you, it's a big problem. And I think really that's what's at the crux of this whole thing. This kind of dual-minded, I can do this, but it better not happen to me kind of mentality is omnipresent in conservatism. It seems like you actually don't care about free speech. You only care about your speech. I know it seems like I'm really just lambasting conservatives as a position here, but really it's just talking through the idea of irony and hypocrisy as it's expressed within this particular group. Genuinely, to this day, I still want to have conversations with folks that disagree with me. It's not a reactionary politics of mine or a reactionary position. It's genuinely what I believe. Someone that I'm really inspired by, just as a quick tangent, is Daryl Davis. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. He's a black dude who chatted with over 200 members of the KKK, who you would think are beyond salvation or beyond being convinced, and got them to lay down their clan robes, right? So in my mind, and I think in his mind as well, there is a definite value in talking to people that are unlike you or don't think like you. And fundamentally, that's at the core of the kind of outreach that I was trying to do on r/conservative, right? Opening myself up to saying, hey, you know what? I may be wrong about this. I want to chat with you guys. It's a genuine, there is a problem in this country, right? Where we are at each other's freaking necks all the time, and something needs to change about the way that we talk to each other. Forget my video, forget that I was banned. The position of we are not going to talk to each other, we are only going to hold these specific values, and this is the only space in which this can happen, isn't working all that well. I think to the point of unity, which again has been on everyone's mind since Joe Biden was elected, is very simply, how are we ever going to achieve this unity if the spaces in which challenging conversations could happen, where ideals have to be defended and run up against and arguments have to be had, simply if that space doesn't exist anymore, at least within an online format. That's not to say that it can't exist in the real world, but geographic data tells us we don't live next to people that we disagree with all that much, which is to say that one of the primary arenas in which these ideas are actually being debated is online. And so to completely eliminate one of the primary arenas in which that can happen puts us at a severe disadvantage to actually being able to come up with what the right answer is. And again, a lot of what I'm saying, I think, sounds like it could be a counter argument against censoring Parler, censoring Donald Trump on Twitter, censoring conservatives on other platforms. I think there is some amount of validity to that, right? Like someone who is conservative that is just trying to have a genuine discussion, that makes sense. But at least one faction of conservatism seems to be synonymous with extremism and white nationalism and violence. When Donald Trump is saying, yeah, you guys should storm the Capitol, it makes sense that, all right, we're no longer in the realm of having an enlightened, good conversation with one another on these platforms, and now it's just about holding on to power and espousing violence. Something does need to happen in those cases. But I think for everything within that, right, that isn't about stoking fear or stoking violence, right? There should be a space where we do get to talk about all these other things. Keep in mind, Charlie Kirk, still on Twitter, Ben Shapiro, still on Twitter. So the silencing of conservative voices, which I think conservative people are really scared about, really hasn't happened, save for the cases where, in my opinion, it should be happening, right? Because people are being extremists. All this to say, I think, as I've kind of talked about the hypocrisy, the irony, it's becoming clearer what conservatives are willing to decry about liberal behavior. They themselves are turning around and doing and just calling it something a little bit different. Perhaps that should serve as, one, a moment of reckoning to be like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't hate liberal people as much as I think I do, because hey, you know what, we're doing the same shit after all. And also, maybe there's just a different way of doing this, right? Maybe r/conservative. If you guys want to have your safe space and you really just want to keep it super homogenous and never have your ideas challenged, that's, in my opinion, a great loss. You are losing out on being able to actually grow as a person, right? If what they're saying about r/politics is true, the same can be said about that subreddit as well. Again, assuming that conservatives aren't just going on and being like, hey, and stuff like that. I should probably censor that. Conservative people, if you're watching, thank you for watching. It generally does mean a lot because obviously I'm not someone who's conservative. So if you decided to stick through this, I think you're doing hard work, right? And that's something that I genuinely applaud you for. Hit me up, talk to me about it. I want to hear what you think about the idea of safe spaces, echo chambers, and silos, and more broadly for everyone. Do you think it's productive for us to have these very narrow, homogenous groups where we talk about these things only amongst ourselves, or is it worthwhile to engage folks across the aisle? I want to hear from you. That's all for me. I'll see you guys next time.